Welcome to the Vendetta Sports Media Daily Show. It is May the 5th. Today, we got myself, James Herrick, Jack Saban. How we doing?
What up? What up? Doing great. Last minute edition of the show today, but
Yep, we're
that's how
here.
it goes sometimes.
Yep,
We're
we're
here,
here.
though.
Last night we only had one NBA playoff game on the books. It was Warriors Lakers. Big win for the Warriors. What'd you think?
Yeah, I mean, going into this game, I would have been very surprised if the Warriors dropped two games at home. Because these first two games were both home for Warriors, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I would have been very surprised with how good this Warriors team's been at home. They're 33-8 at home. So dropping two to this Lakers team would have been very surprising. I mean, Clay kind of had his, I think, breakout game of the postseason. He hasn't been horrible this postseason, but I don't think we've seen him, quite play like this level. 30 points, 8 of 11 from three. Curry didn't really have to do too much. 20 points, but was really getting going as a playmaker with 12 assists.
Mm-hmm.
And then Wiggins didn't do amazing 11 points in 11 minutes, but Jermichael Green, I mean, props to him. He only plays
Yep.
like 13 minutes and finishes with 15 points, 6 and 9 shooting from the field. So yeah, it was kind of a good team effort for this Warriors team. We've seen them play this kind of basketball all season. And yeah, Clay kind of finally got going. The Warriors were able to limit AD this game, didn't let him kind of just feast down low in the paint. And yeah, the Warriors were kind of able to stick to their way of basketball.
Yeah, yeah, and as far as I was very surprised that Jermichael Green got the start. I mean, I got that notification and I was like, "What the hell's going on here?" But it worked out for him. They were running the offense early, and Steph was really doing a good job as a playmaker, like you said, finished with 12 assists. A lot of those came early as they were kind of racking up a lead. But Jermichael Green got a lot of open looks, and that late addition to the starting lineup ended up working out really well for them. He got a lot of open shots, and he was knocking them down. So, like you said, credit to him. Um, and then, I mean, once this game kind of got out of hand, you kind of felt how it was going. Clay got hot. They got the early lead, and this wasn't really much of a game for the large portion of it. And I agree with what you said. I did not think the Warriors were going to drop two at home. To me, that just seemed pretty unlikely. It looked like they were going to split here in Golden State, and they're probably gonna go to LA and then split again. Is At least that's how I see this series going.
Yeah, it's kind of how I expected it. And then yeah, I mean the Warriors shot 50% from three. It's
Mhm.
just the Warriors are shooting that good from three. It's you're not gonna win. It's just gonna be very unlikely if the Warriors are shooting that good from three that you end up winning.
Yep, I'm with you. I am with you. And then one of the other big games we've got tonight, we've got two games tonight, and the first of the two is Celtics versus Sixers. And this series is tied up 1-1. I don't know what your preview of this series is. I know you're a 76ers fan and a Philly sports fan, but Giamatti and I were on Monday, and we both talked about how we thought this series was going to be. I don't know if uncompetitive is the right word, but we were both we were both anticipating a Celtics win, but we're split 1-1. Celtics did get a big win in game two. So, what are you looking for in game three, and how do you think we go from here?
Well, let me just come right out and say that I was also very surprised to see us have taken game one. I mean, I thought for sure it was just going to be, we're going to go down 2-0 and then it's just going to be downhill from there.
Mm-hmm.
But somehow we won without Embiid. I think at this point, the Sixers team is going to need James Harden to continue to step up because it's just clear that Embiid isn't going to be at 100%. I think he's slated to play tonight, but I mean, it's a it's like his grade 2 MCL sprain, so it usually sidelines you for about 4 to 6 weeks. He's basically coming back immediately. And I mean, you could tell in that game too, he just wasn't all the way right, and it kind of I think it kind of messed with Harden's flow. I mean, he only shot 2 of 14, 0 of 6 from 3. So I think if the Sixers team is going to win, James Harden is going to kind of have to take that role as the dominant scorer, just because I don't think Embiid really has it in him at this point with his knee to be carrying the brunt of the load offensively.
Yeah, that makes sense. And even like as good as he is, if your knee is that hurt, you can only do so much. And then it's almost to the point where you want him out there more as of a decoy almost. If he can't be
Yeah,
the number one guy offensively, then you want him out there as a decoy so you can get guys like James Harden and Tyrese Maxey good looks. And even then, it's like they're facing such an uphill battle in this series where it's like Harden and Maxey have to get so hot for them to
yeah,
rattle off 3 more wins that it seems pretty improbable. But with that being said, I mean, no one was really thinking Miami was going to beat the Bucks the first round, so it wouldn't be the craziest thing that happened all postseason. But do we get another crazy upset for the second time this postseason? I'm not really sure that is probable.
yeah. I'm not banking on it. I don't
Mm.
have a lot of faith in the Sixers team.
Yeah,
Probably have the least amount of faith in them out of all the major Philly sports teams. I don't really watch hockey, so I'm like counting the Flyers. I know they suck, but the
yeah, and
Sixers are
it
just
it does feel like the Sixers like best chance to make it to the finals has passed at this point,
well,
which
yeah, because
sucks
I mean,
because they still have Embiid, but it's like the way this roster is constructed, it's not like super deep. I mean, there's some good players, but it's like there's not a lot of great wings. There's some issues with the roster.
yeah, and I think whoever wins this series between the Sixers and Celtics will probably end up going to the finals because I like both these teams more than the Heat and the Knicks at this point.
Yeah, I'm with you, and especially if Jimmy's ankle is like bad, like if
Yeah,
his like I the Knicks can obviously still win the series, but if you've got an injured Jimmy in the Eastern Conference Finals for 7 games, that Heat team does not look like
I mean, yeah, who's going to be
nearly.
scoring? Bam Adebayo, like
Yeah, they would need the role players to step up heavy, which they did earlier in the series against the Knicks, but like you can't rely on that for a whole series. And
definitely. But yeah, I think the Sixers we at least did what we needed to do in taking one. I mean, the roadmap is always at least take one on the road. So
mhm,
I wasn't too worried about that second game. I mean, I would have preferred we not lose by like damn near 40,
yeah,
but I think the fact that we at least took one in Boston, it gives us a chance. Keeps
yep,
us on track.
yep. That's a good point. You never want to fall behind 0-2. Now you're at home for 2 games, and hope to split, get it to 2-2. Obviously, trying to extend the series a little bit, but if you can win 2 games at home, you might be in good shape. But um, I guess we'll have to see how that series plays out. But yeah, and then the last game tonight, we've got Nuggets and Suns. Nuggets have a surprising 2-0 lead. I wasn't really thinking the Nuggets were going to come out this hot. I thought the series would be close. I had some close games in there. At least the second game was a little bit closer. Chris Paul is now hurt. So what are you looking at for game 3 with Chris Paul out? But the Suns certainly still do have the firepower to go out there and get a win. I feel like even with him out.
Yeah, it just sucks, man. It seems like Chris Paul getting hurt in the postseason. It's kind of like Joel Embiid, where it's just like not a matter of if, but a matter of when.
Hmm.
And you hate to see it because he can be such a valuable player. And for this Suns team, where it seems like depth was kind of one of their biggest weaknesses. I mean, they have a starting five that can compete, and it's probably the best starting five in the NBA. But
Hmm.
then you get to this bench, and it's just Ish Wainwright, you know, Torrey Craig,
Yeah.
Bismack Biombo, Cameron Payne. It's not a whole lot that necessarily impresses you. They don't really have, a guy on the bench who can kind of go in and get a bucket, which I feel like when you have a bench unit, you at least need like one guy who
Hmm.
can kind of just go in and get his own bucket and kind of create offense for himself. And the Suns team just does not have that. I mean, for some reason, TJ Warren just does not play. I don't know
Terrence
what
Ross, the same thing.
yeah, I mean, I don't understand why those two guys aren't getting, majority of minutes. I understand Ross is a bit older at this point, but I mean, I would trust Ross and TJ Warren over Ish Wainwright or Cameron Payne, who shot 1 for 7.
Hmm. And those guys are, it's like those guys are thrust into bigger roles now because Paul's out, so you got to add to the starting lineup, and then that takes you one deeper on your already weak bench. So that puts him in a bad spot. And as much as Chris Paul isn't the biggest superstar on this team, right? He's not like KD and Booker are the 1 and 2 on this team. And you've got Aiton, who you'd love to see play better, but it still feels like he's the three. But Chris Paul is like the glue guy for that offense. So it's like you're losing a very talented player in Chris Paul, but he's also your glue guy. So it hurts him even more since like once once he once he got hurt, that team kind of fell apart. And I think it was game 2, down in crunch time, their whole offense was basically just Booker and KD running ISO, which
Yeah,
you can, I mean, if you're going to run ISO with two guys, KD and Booker is not the worst,
yeah,
combo you could come up with, but you run an ISO for 7 minutes of a game and you're getting a mid range jumper every possession and they're not falling. And then the Nuggets, don't even really have to be that effective on offense because you're not doing anything on your offensive side of the court. So it's like the whole offense just kind of fell apart, became ISO ball. And that is as good as those guys are. I'd much rather see, them scheming up open looks and running strong sets, which they're not really doing much of at all right now, which is how Golden State found success. Despite having Curry, they don't just run ISO with Curry all day. They were setting up shots and they were spreading the ball around.
yeah. I mean, I think the loss of Paul definitely kind of throws off the fluidity of the offense. They don't. I mean, they obviously still have guys who are primary ball handlers, like KD and Devin Booker. But when Chris Paul's out, I don't know if they have, someone that can exemplify that true point guard role, or that
Mm-hmm.
point guard role, and kind of facilitate and run an offense. Because yeah, I mean, like you said, Kevin Durant running ISO ball. I mean, it's gonna work, a decent amount and get you buckets, but it's not necessarily going to be the most sustainable, and it's just not gonna keep you in the game for very long. So I'm interested to see how Monty Williams adjusts. Haven't loved his decision making so far this series and so far just this postseason in general with I mean, like we already said, with some of the decisions on who's playing versus who's not playing. Because I think at this point you got to switch the lineup up a little bit. Get TJ Warren and Terrence Ross out there, and maybe they can get you some buckets off the bench. Because I mean, right now it's just this bench is not cutting it. And I say that for the Suns, but I mean, I'm looking at the Nuggets bench, and last game they only had 3 guys off the bench. It was Jeff Green, Bruce Brown, and this Christian Braun guy. I mean, granted, I trust Bruce Brown on that unit over anybody on the Suns bench unit. But still, I mean, it seems like the Nuggets are only rolling out with 3 guys on their bench.
Yeah, and to that I don't know how bad that's going to hurt the Nuggets like this series. Like that might not bite the Nuggets, today. It might not get them in game 4 or game 5, however many games this series go. But I think that's something that'll hurt them Western Conference Finals and Finals if they keep winning. Where it'll either come via fatigue or they'll run into a time where they actually need the depth players to step up. It'll be it'll be one of the two. Um, and it's like that as much as the Nuggets got to win in game 2. So credit to them, but I don't think they really played great in game 2 either. I mean, just
No,
they
they didn't even
put
score
up
100.
yeah, they put up 97 in a winning effort, which is good, but we've also talked a lot about how, the Suns did not play well offensively. So they almost felt like a benefactor of the Suns not playing well, and they just kind of played a little bit better than a Suns team that was not playing good at all. So, and when you're looking at this, like Jokic was the only one who really had an effective night offensively. I mean, he played great, don't get me wrong, but like once again, Jamal Murray, 10 points. Aaron Gordon, 16 points. Michael Porter Jr., 5 points. So like once again, you can't rely on Jokic for to do that every game. With that being said, with that being said, um, they win, and Jamal Murray played well the first game. So
Yeah, I mean that first game, Jamal Murray, if he
it's
get what
it's early
34
there,
points
and
that first game, yeah, I
yeah,
saw it. I
it's
saw it
early
for
there in
sure.
West Coast time for you.
Yeah, last minute addition, but yeah, Jamal Murray played great game one, cooled off a little bit this game. I think,
Hmm.
yeah, I mean, kind of like you touched on it, they'll need more production from some of these other stars. I think Aaron Gordon was 16. You'll probably take that from Aaron Gordon on
Yep.
any given night if he's giving you 16. But yeah, if Jamal Murray's giving you only 10 on 3 of 15 shooting and Michael Porter Jr. is going 2 of 7 from the field, you're not usually going to win too many games. You got kind of, they definitely got a little lucky in catching the Suns on such an off night. I mean, Kevin Durant shot 2 of 12 from 3. That's not something, that's not something you see very often. I feel like it's Kevin Durant just going that ice cold. So I'm expecting he'll probably have a pretty big bounce back game here. And it's just a matter of if the guys 1 through 5 on the Nuggets can kind of carry the load and not force Jokic to have, these 40-point triple doubles just to, give him a chance to stay in the game.
Hmm. Yep. Thanks for checking in, Trey.
Yep.
Should be an interesting day here, so we'll see how that goes. But I agree with you. Like Kevin Durant and Devin Booker, like one of those two is going to get hot, right? So one of those dudes is going to catch fire eventually, and that will, those two guys are good enough where they could do that for 4 games for the next. Why is my math terrible? For the next 5 games, jeez. But those guys are good enough to really get hot and win the games, and you only need one of them. It's like if one of those dudes gets hot and the Nuggets perform at this level, there could be issues. Um, with that being said, they're also going back to Phoenix too, so that may help them as well. That may help out the role players, may help get you some more production out of that bench group being at home. But with this series, it does look like a Nugget series to me at this point. I had them in 7 to start the series, and then at this point, we're looking at a 2-0 Nuggets win or a 2-0 Nuggets lead, and Chris Paul is also out, and it just looks like the Suns aren't going to be able to adjust in time to get back in this series.
Yeah, it's getting bleaker and bleaker by the day, it seems like. And yeah, I've had some questions with some of the decisions Monty Williams has made already, and now he's getting even thinner in terms of what he's gonna do in terms of who he gives playing time to. Because yeah, I think I was kind of the same way. I had like I had the Nuggets in like 6 initially. Now it's looking like it'll be even quicker than that. I mean, if you're the Suns, you want to at least take one of those 2 games in Denver,
Hmm. Yeah,
but kind
ha-
of
have
kind
to
of dug
take one
yourself
of
in a
the two.
hole here.
Have to take one of the two. And to your point about Monty Williams, the interesting part about him, like as the coach, is this is not like the first time. If they lose a series, it won't be the first time that they disappoint in a series. Like last year, that series in Dallas was about as grim as it gets. Like
Yeah.
That's about as low as you can get. And if they don't turn things around, this series might be back-to-back series where they not only get bounced in the postseason, but get bounced embarrassingly. This time, you're going against a Nuggets team that is a lot better than last year's Dallas team. So that I don't think it would sting as bad, but still going out in the second round after you trade for Kevin Durant is definitely not something that that front office wants. So I'd be interested to see how they approach that
Yeah,
Monty Williams situation at that point.
especially with how hot they got. I mean, they were like what 10-0 going into the postseason. What yeah, while playing with Kevin Durant, like
Mhm.
they looked unstoppable with Kevin Durant on the floor. And I mean, yeah, I mean, you mentioned the front office, and I mean, we'll talk about it in a little bit, but I mean, we've already seen what happens where even if you even if you win a championship with your team, early playoff exits can lose you your job.
Yep. And that's a good segue. But before we really get into the Budenholzer situation, I do want to throw out there that could I wonder how they would also approach that Chris Paul situation, because once again, as good as Chris Paul is, and I think he had a very solid year and played his role well. With that being said, when you can't make it through the postseason, that really then throws a wrench in like the whole team when you're the glue guy and then you get hurt. Or last year he really didn't play well in the postseason. So as much as they may be fed up with Monty Williams, you could say that same sentence about Chris Paul after getting hurt. Which, hey, you can't control getting hurt, but there's also on the flip side of that, injury prone players get hurt, and maybe they just want to cut their ties with an injury prone player. So I'd be interested to see how they approach that situation in Phoenix as well.
Yeah, and I mean, I feel like I've kind of experienced this as a Sixer fan because it's like you never just want to outright blame the player
Hmm.
for getting injured and being like, oh, screw you, you get injured. But it's just when it seems like it, happens like every year and it's almost like becoming a trend. It's
Hmm.
just kind of like so annoying. Where like when I heard the news about Embiid's MCL, it was just like, oh man, here we go again. Last year it was like the orbital fracture in his eye or something like that. Just seems like every year, with Chris Paul, it's just some sort of nagging injury. And yeah, like you said, from what I remember, he stayed pretty healthy throughout the regular season. And then yeah, it's just a huge gut punch. You get to the playoffs, and I know Chris Paul is dying for that ring, man. I mean, he
Yep.
was 2 wins away from it a couple years ago. I'm sure he's obviously itching for that ring and wants to be out on the court. So I feel for him in that sense. But
Hmm.
I also can see Suns fans, definitely kind of being frustrated and being like, "Damn, man, again, like another injury."
Yeah, it's just demoralizing. I think demoralizing is the best word for whether it's Chris Paul or Embiid
That's
or
a good word
whoever.
for
Whenever,
everyone involved.
yep, yep, yeah, players too. Yeah, I agree with you. But transitioning over to what you alluded to earlier, Mike Budenholzer is out as the Bucks head coach, which there were rumors about this immediately, like right as they lost. There was like reports and discussions about his future as the Bucks head coach, but they ended up actually pulling the trigger and firing him. So, what do you make of this firing? It definitely caught me by surprise, but what were your thoughts?
Yeah, it's interesting because like it caught me by surprise, but like it also didn't. I know, I mean, that makes sense because it's like Budenholzer was obviously a well respected coach within the league, and obviously has a reputation. But I mean, you lose to that Heat team in what was it, 5 games?
Hmm.
You lose to a Heat team without Jimmy Butler, or no, without Jimmy Butler, without Tyler Hero. And yeah, Jimmy Butler didn't play, I think, in one or two of those games, unless I'm mistaken.
Yeah, I thought he played in all of them. I think it was the first Knicks game that he got real hurt. But
Okay, yeah,
either
maybe
way,
yeah,
Tyler, that's
yeah,
a Heat team that didn't play well without Tyler, and they also did not have Tyler Hero. So that
yeah,
Heat team was not even at 100% anyways.
And especially, yeah, because I mean, this Bucks team, they're obviously in their championship window, so they're expecting, big things and to kind of collapse, on that stage. And I know head head coaches just in general, I feel like just have it so rough because they'll never get credit when it's good because whenever it's going good, it's oh well, the players are playing good, but then the
Mhm.
second it goes bad, it all of a sudden seems to be the head coach's fault. Even though when it's going good, the players and front office get the credit. So I feel like head coaches in general just get a bad rep. I mean, my thing is if you're gonna fire a head coach, then you got to have somebody in mind who you think is going to be better. And I mean, the first name that came into my mind was Nick Nurse. I still don't think he's been hired. That, in my mind, is probably the only direction you could go where it could be, considered an upgrade or at least not a downgrade. Because I think Ime is already in Houston, right? He
Yep.
took the job in Houston. And off the top of my head, I don't know what the other head coaches that are available are.
I don't even think there are any like. There's obviously some guys out there, but there aren't any like Nick Nurse level or Budenholzer level guys who like have recently been fired. Because the the only other guy that got fired was Dwayne Casey, and he didn't technically get fired. They just moved him to the front office, so he's not going to leave Detroit, and that's not really a name that I don't think would really interest anyone,
Yeah.
anyways.
So I mean, I feel like unless they're setting out to like get Nick Nurse, then I don't fully understand it because I understand you're not happy that you lost the series. You were dealing with Giannis, who was kind of dealing with his own injuries. Chris Middleton and Drew Holiday both just kind of disappeared too.
Hmm.
So it's like I don't know how much of it was actually on Budenholzer. Maybe he was. I don't watch a lot of Bucks or a lot of Milwaukee Bucks basketball. I watched some of those Heat games, so
Hmm.
I don't know kind of if he's putting horrible lineups out there or can't run an offense to save his life. But it just kind of seemed like for the Bucks, some of their big guys just kind of disappeared.
Yeah. And I know he's a defensive minded guy, so it's like the offense wasn't necessarily like his specialty. And then Giannis goes out, and your best offensive weapons without Giannis are not playing well. So it's like it's that's already not a great start for him. And I loved your point about when you fire a head coach, there should like the question should be who's better, right?
Yeah,
Who like before you fire him, you should be asking who's better, who's going to replace him. Like in a lot of cases, there is not a guy that's better. And I think here the only guy I agree with you about Nick Nurse. I think that may be a solid option. But like it doesn't make sense to me really because if you don't get Nurse, now you're looking at an assistant head coach that's getting a first time role with a Bucks team that is in its championship window
yeah,
and is had a successful head coach, right? They won a championship and they were the one seed. It's like he's proven to be a good head coach for that team, even if this postseason was a disappointment. So I thought this was just going to be smoke. I didn't think we'd actually get the fire. I didn't think they were actually going to let him go. But hey, they let him go. Caught me by surprise. So I think you're right. It's Nick Nurse, or then they're fishing for assistant coach. Who knows? Maybe you'll get another like Chauncey Billups who comes out of TV for a Bucks team, but
because
seems,
I mean,
seems
if I'm
unlikely.
not getting Nick Nurse, it seems like it could only be a downgrade.
Hmm.
And yeah, I mean, when you win your championship window, I feel like you kind of want to try to keep as much of your core team together as you can. That's why I think that the Celtics losing into Ime was kind of a big deal. And
Yep.
you're seeing Joe Mazzulla is still kind of adjusting to playoff basketball and stuff. But Budenholzer, like you said, you got a guy who's done it before. Like that he can coach playoff winning basketball.
Hmm. And even if it's just like a culture thing, like at a minimum, he can breed the culture needed to win a championship, which also is not something that I think, you know, every head coach has. Some guys just don't have that in them. Some guys find out the hard way. Some guys never even get the opportunity to find out at all. But you found out with him, and he's got it. So there's no reason to let him go. And then last thing that we'll touch on today, you and I are squaring off in fantasy baseball, and we are in the middle of a heater here. I,
Yep.
I think you and I will double check, but I think right now for this week so far,
I'm pulling up my phone right now. Let me
yeah,
see.
we are second and third in points scored. Hannafan has the most with 213.
I was gonna say is Trey ahead of us, but no, he's not.
No, Trey has 139.
Yeah. No,
Um,
it was that damn Wednesday. I mean, on Wednesday the daily was 90 to 82. I think that's more than some. Yeah, Jewel Addict only has 72. Jerry has 67. Andrew has 97. Garrett's at 62, and Bagdonis is at 36. So not one day we outscored like half the league.
Yep. And our point totals are 209 to 180. I've got 209. And I think we're tied with both having 6 starters go. But I think you have a couple more starters than I do, like quality starters with matchup set.
Yeah,
So,
I got three guys going today, so I'm
yeah,
kind of hoping to make up ground.
all I have today is Hunter Green.
Yeah, I saw
So,
that. So I'm hoping
I'm
I can make up ground. I mean, Erod yesterday went absolutely crazy. I mean, he's gonna mess around and win a Cy Young at this point.
Erod has not even just like fancy baseball wise, but he has had an absolute resurgence for the last. Right now, he's pitcher 17, which doesn't sound great, but he had one negative start in there. But his last four
He's
starts,
averaging that many points or that's his ranking. Because on here it says he's ranked third.
oh, it says here position rank 17, but he's also averaging 17. So maybe my phone just hasn't updated his position rank.
Okay,
Regardless,
my
in his last four, he's gone 32, 26, 16, and 32 with one earned run over the last 4 starts.
yeah, he's been absolutely crazy. I mean, he's 3-2 on the season, a 1.81 ERA, and a .78 WHIP. I mean, anytime you got that WHIP below one, it's gonna go well for you. But yeah, I mean, not even as much starting pitching has been the name of the game for you. Your damn relief pitching. I mean, seems like every night you're having. I guess Lang and Chapman just pitch every night for the Tigers and Royals.
Yeah. Chapman had a real bad night last night, but the 2 or 3 games before that he was playing well. I had an AJ Minter in there for a second. I added him when the Braves were on that doubleheader and he got in a game. But last night I had all 9 innings of the Tigers shutout in my lineup, so that ended up going well for me. And we've had hitters produce too. You a little bit more so than I have, but I had Vladdy with the homer. Riley Green had a homer. I think Franco had one. Maybe not today, or maybe it was a couple days ago. Yep. No, he had home run. You had Ozzy Albies get a homer in a 13-point day. Muncy had a grand slam. So we've gotten production out of the bats too, which for some weeks I look at my lineup some weeks and I'm like, shit, someone get more than 3 points, please. I'm begging you.
Yeah, and I mean on a Wednesday in my lineup, that's when I had the Ozzy Albies 13-point game. Max Muncy has been like, I think he was like the last pick I made. That's been an absolute gem of a pick so far.
Mm-hmm.
He's been going absolutely crazy. And yeah, I mean at this point I just gotta have the starting pitching to keep up. I mean yesterday I had Giolito get me 21. He had a good outing, but then I picked up Jordan Lyles, and that did not go very well. I mean, whopping negative 2 points. Guy got absolutely shelled.
Yep. And
But
it'll be interesting here. We're definitely in for a close one. McClanahan had a nice 20 for you.
yeah, he's been
And
great this season too.
with all the pitchers on my team, I took some swings on pitchers, right? I took a swing on like Rodriguez, took a swing on Stroman. Those guys have pitched well. The guy that has pitched like absolute shit, Alex Manoah,
Alex
was not the
Manoah.
guy that I was expecting to be the pitcher that did not perform for me. But here we are, and he's averaging 5.7, and he'll have a good start every once in a while, but he, for the most part, is getting absolutely rocked this season.
Yeah, I mean, starting pitching, it was probably my biggest weakness going into the season. I didn't made a move to bring in Giolito. Jordan Romano and Paul Sewald have kind of been my saving grace for pitchers. I mean, Paul Sewald, I think I'm looking at it here, is at least on my phone, it's saying he's a number one position ranked relief pitcher. I think he picked up a save last night. Romano's kind of cooled off. I think his last outing he blew a save against Boston. So that wasn't ideal. But yeah, I
Mhm.
mean, I think we're both 3-1 right now. We're both among the top players in the league, and we're both in the same conference. So
Yeah. And I think we were both, I don't remember exactly where you were in the preseason rankings, but I was at 11.
dude, I
So,
was at like 9 or something. I was
yeah.
all the way down there.
We were both in the bottom of the preseason power rankings, and here we are, both 3-1, and one of us will be 4-1. So, 3-2 is not a bad start either. But so far, we've both far outperformed our preseason ranking, which that's always a nice little cherry
Yeah,
on top.
always feels good. Always feels good to prove my low wrong, especially since his Dodgers just beat up on my damn Phillies.
All right. We're at 36 minutes. It's going to be a little bit of a shorter show today, but do you have anything that you want to throw out there before we end this one? Are you good to call it?
No, I think I'm good. Just
All
hoping my
right.
Sixers win.
Yep. I'll be rooting for you. I'll be rooting for you. And today's Friday, last day of the Daily Show. Daily Show will be back on Monday. No weekend episodes. But thank you to everyone who tuned in today to the Daily Show, and we will catch you next time.